Hi, so it's Cara, and today we're going to be doing a review for the lovely Starbound trilogy. I've recently read all three of these, loved them. I'm going to talk about them today. So first off, we have These Broken Stars, then This Shattered World, and Their Fractured Light by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. Their Fractured Light, the third and final book in the trilogy, only came out a month or so ago. But wow. I've semi-marathon these. I've read them all in like a month. But I didn't read them directly one after another. I can't do that. I've talked about being unable to marathon books before. But I read these pretty much in one go. These are science fiction, I would say companion novels, but really they're a series. The plot is very theoretical? Who knows what I just attempted to say? But each follows a different pair of characters, but their stories all intertwine. So they're told, each one's told in dual perspective, like from the male and the female part of the couple. But there's three different couples, and it follows their individual stories and then the overall arcing story. The first one is kind of a Titanic retelling. The second one is kind of a Romeo and Juliet retelling. And then, but not so strict as that, just similar themes. And the third one is kind of an Ocean's 11 retelling. That's not right. I just can't think of what other thing it is. They're hackers and con artists. I think Ocean's 11 when I hear hackers and con artists. Let's be real. So these are, I gave each of them 5 stars, I believe. They should have all had 5 stars. If they don't, they're all worthy of 5 stars. I can't believe it took me this long to pick up the first one. First of all, the covers are all stunning. Like, you can't go past these stunning covers, even though obviously I've got light glinting and it's kind of shining in your face. But, and then these are just great. The science fiction quality is super high. I am really not normally that fussed on science fiction, unless you give me an interesting twist to pull me in. But these were just done so well. Like, obviously set in futuristic space travel, everything, but also really well backstoried. Like, how everything works is really well thought out. I'm trying to avoid spoilers here, but the main plot thread of the book is the science fiction element, and then the love story of each one and what happens in each one is the different plot lines. But the science fiction element is just through the roof phenomenal. My one possible, not really a problem, but concern with it is that I felt like the solution to each book's problem ended up being kind of the same thing, just with higher stakes. So the answers were relatively similar. The way to reach those answers was not, but ultimately the solving of the problem, the answer to the problem was the same, even if the solving wasn't, because obviously there were different sets of characters, and each character pair had their own unique dynamic, and where they were background and thought through things differently and came to different conclusions and responded in different ways. So I guess that was a strength, but the plot point of how to solve the problem was the answer to the problem was a little bit too similar each time. I expected it to keep getting more and more intense. It was kind of like a more and more intense solving and reason to solve, but the same actual answer? I don't know. It would make more sense if you'd read it, but obviously you probably haven't. Other things that I really wanted to mention was the interconnectedness between the characters. So I'd come into this thinking these were companion novels, and I guess they technically are. But in the first book, you only hear about Lilac and Tava, the characters in this one. But by the time you get to the second book, and I read the second book knowing who the characters were in the third one because I'd read the back, like a fool. But this second one has characters from all three, and you just kind of see them just hanging around there. The third one obviously has all 6 people, main characters, because everything's getting resolved. So this one feels the most like a sequel. These feel like 2 first books and this is a sequel. Like the second one, you wouldn't need any knowledge of the first one, really, except for backstory. Whereas this third one relies very heavily on the other 2. So I can understand why people who read the first 2 very much thought they were a companion series, because I guess it kind of feels that way. And then the third one happens. And mind blown. Yeah, just the way they intertwine the characters, the way they all had a connection to each other already, but they were kind of... I'm trying not to spoil anyone. But yeah, it was so well thought out. It was very intentional. It was very deliberate. And it was very well thought through. And it was amazing. Like, just seeing those threads and seeing how they all work together was so good. What else do I want to talk about? I mentioned really deep and interesting characters. Everyone was so interesting. Had a great backstory. So Lilac, daughter of the richest guy in the universe. Tava, a soldier. And we have Lee, Jubilee, who's also technically a soldier, but feels totally different to Tava. And Flynn, who's a rebel on the planet that they're on, with an Irish background. And then Gideon and Sophie. Sophie's also from the rebel planet, but now she's a con artist. And Gideon's a hacker. And you just... like, right from the outset, they all feel like different characters. They all read like different characters. Their voices, like, it's told in first person, dual narration, and their voices felt unique. Like, it's, you know what I mean. Their voicing, like, their narrative voice felt unique. And I just... plus these covers. Like, even if these were a cover buy for me, they improved so much beyond that. I don't even know what to keep saying. Like, if you haven't read this series, and science fiction even vaguely interests you, you should go out and read them, because they are amazing. Even if, like, their pacing is kind of weird. Not weird, like, it works for what it is. But I guess the start of each one is a little bit slow. Less so in the third one. But both in the first one and the second one. And then it gets more intense. That early, like, figuring everything out pacing might turn some people off. It didn't turn me off, but might turn some people off. But the endings of each one are so worth it and so intense. And especially the third one, because, like, from halfway through the book, suddenly you've got all the characters there. Like, I was like, oh, we're practically at the end. Where are we going from here? And it just kept going. And it was so good. And I just... if you haven't read these, go pick them up, go read them. They're worth it. Do it. Even if you don't love them that much, as much as I do, they're gorgeous to sit on your shelf. And just read them. Enjoy them. Yes. Yes. And they're way more serious than they seem. So keep that in mind. And I think that's all I have to say. This has not been a coherent review at all, but I am starting to get tired and it's really, really hot. So I will see you soon with another video. Bye!